Close your eyes for a second. It's dark. You haven't eaten in 2 days. Your stomach is hollow. Your hands are shaking, but you know exactly where the hurt is. You tracked it yesterday, found the perfect spot, mapped every step in your head, and then it starts raining. Not a drizzle, a soaking, wind-driven, relentless downpour. It goes all day, all night. And when you wake up, it's still going. And suddenly, everything you thought you knew about survival just went out the window. For you, rain is background noise, the sound you fall asleep to, the excuse to grab coffee, a blanket, and scroll through your phone. For a human being 50,000 years ago, that same rain, the exact same sound, could kill you in 3 ways before it even stopped. 1. Cold. A wet human loses body heat up to 25 times faster than a dry one. No waterproof jackets, no heating. A few hours in anything below 50 degrees and your body just shuts down. 2. Flooding. Caves, the main places people lived, are often at the base of hills or near rivers. Heavy rain meant flash floods. Archaeologists have found layers of flood sediment inside occupied caves. Thick layers. And after some of those floods, the caves were never used again. 3. Predators. Because rain doesn't just trap humans, it drives everything into shelter. And sometimes that shelter was the same cave you were in. In South Africa, archaeologists found human remains and large cat remains in the same layers, with puncture marks in the skulls that match leopard teeth perfectly. So rain didn't just make life uncomfortable, it compressed the entire world. Humans, predators, prey, all of them squeezed into the same small, dry spaces at the same time. And in the middle of all that, one job mattered more than anything else. This isn't a story about boredom or Netflix. This is a story about life and death. And what ancient humans did during that storm might be the most important thing they ever did. And here's why that was terrifying. Before roughly 40,000 years ago, we're not entirely sure humans could start fire from scratch. We have evidence of controlling fire going back hundreds of thousands of years. But creating one from nothing, that's a completely different skill. So if your fire went out, you couldn't just light another one. You had to carry an ember from somewhere else. Some groups actually did this, transporting smoldering coals wrapped in green leaves or packed inside a special mushroom called tender fungus. It could catch a spark and smolder inside itself for hours. Think about that pressure. One person's entire job during a rainstorm was just sitting next to that fire, feeding it, shielding it, making sure it didn't die. Because that fire wasn't just warmth, it was light, safety, cooked food, the center of everything. Letting it go out wasn't just careless, it was potentially fatal for everyone. So the fire's going. You're mostly dry, but you cannot leave. What do? You make things. The archaeological record is very clear on this. Caves are absolutely packed with evidence of manufacturing, stone tools in every stage of production, piles of flaking debris concentrated in specific spots, exactly where someone would sit near firelight and work for hours. But it wasn't just tools. At a cave in South Africa, archaeologists found a 100,000-year-old ochre processing workshop, abalone shells used as mixing bowls, bone tools for stirring. Someone sat in that cave, probably while the rain pounded outside, and manufactured pigment on purpose, with a system. Then there's the rope. At a site in Germany, they discovered a 35,000-year-old tool carved from mammoth ivory, with 4 holes and spiral grooves designed specifically for twisting plant fibers into rope. Someone sat in that cave and carved a dedicated rope-making machine. Making rope is slow, repetitive, requires patience. It's the perfect bad weather task. And rope changed everything. It let you tie things together, build better shelters, create snares and traps, bind tools to handles. An incredible amount of human technology runs on string, and string was almost certainly invented by someone stuck inside waiting for rain to stop. But here's where the story takes a turn nobody expects. Because all of that, the tools, the rope, the bedding, that's the practical stuff. What came next is something else entirely. The art. In caves in France, paintings that are roughly 36,000 years old, lions, horses, rhinos, drawn with a level of skill that still shocks people today. The artists understood anatomy, movement, perspective. Some animals are drawn mid-stride, muscles tensed, heads turning. These aren't doodles. These are the work of people who watched these animals for thousands of hours, then recreated them from memory, deep underground, by firelight. And here's where it makes this really interesting. Because these paintings aren't at the entrance of the cave where you'd sit for shelter. They're deep, sometimes hundreds of meters in, through narrow passages, in chambers you'd have to crawl to reach. Someone carried animal fat lamps into total darkness and painted. Nobody does that when the weather's perfect and hunting's good. You do that when you can't go outside, when the rain's been falling for 2 days and there's nothing left to do but go deeper into the dark and create something else. And that leads to something even bigger. Rain didn't just create art, it might have created culture itself. Think about it. What happens when 15 or 30 people are forced into a confined space together for days with nothing to do? You talk, you listen, you share information. In one study, researchers compared daytime conversations and nighttime fireside conversations among indigenous people in the Kalahari Desert. During the day, people talked about practical things, resources, complaints. But at night, around the fire, over 80% of the conversation shifted to stories, songs, and ceremonies. The firelight changed what people talked about. It softened faces, reduced tension, created a space where people opened up. The campfire wasn't just warmth, it was the original social network, and the stuff being shared around that fire wasn't small talk, it was survival, where water sources dry up, which plants are safe to eat, how to track specific animals, myths explaining why the rain comes and where it goes. Every ancient culture on Earth has rain mythology, and someone invented those stories. They almost certainly did it sitting in the exact situation the story was trying to explain. Australian Aboriginal stories describing sea level changes from 7,000 years ago survived through nothing but people telling them to each other, over and over and over again. So what did ancient humans do when it rained all week? Everything that mattered. They kept the fire alive. They made the tools for the next hunt. They sewed the clothing that would keep them warm through winter. They twisted the rope that would hold their shelters together. They told the stories that would carry survival knowledge through generations. And when the rain finally stopped, they walked outside into soft ground covered in perfect animal tracks and got back to work. Rain didn't slow them down. It gave them time to prepare for everything that came next. Every tool, every piece of clothing, every story, every painting on a cave wall. All of it came from downtime, from the hours and days when they couldn't go out and had nothing to do except sit near a fire and think. Boredom didn't exist for them the way it does for you, because when you're sitting in a cave with the rain hammering outside and your survival depends on what you make with your hands in the next few hours, you don't get bored.